Everyone thinks poverty is passed down through bad luck. But the truth is, most families don't pass down poverty. They pass down a decision, one decision, repeated by parents, then their children, then their children's children, until an entire bloodline is trapped without ever knowing why. Here's what should terrify you. This mistake doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like responsibility. It looks like hard work. It looks like the smart choice. Parents teach it to their kids with pride. And by the time most families recognize what it actually costs them, 3 generations have already paid the price. In this video, we're going to uncover the exact mistake that quietly drained wealth out of ordinary families for 100 years, how it spreads from parent to child like a virus, why almost nobody warns you about it, not schools, not advertisements, and often not even the people who love you most, and the single moment in your own life where you can still break the chain before it reaches your kids. In 1968, a man named Walter got his first real paycheck. He did everything he was told to do. He worked hard. He saved what he could. He avoided debt when possible. He bought a house, raised 2 children, and retired at 65 with a small pension and a modest bank account. By every measure society gave him, Walter did it right. But when Walter died, he left his children almost nothing. Not because he was careless, not because he was lazy, because Walter believed one thing that quietly worked against him for 43 straight years. Walter believed that a dollar saved was a dollar earned. He never knew that a dollar saved and left sitting still was actually a dollar shrinking. Here's the part nobody tells you. While Walter was proudly watching his savings account balance go up, something invisible was working against him the entire time. Prices were rising. The cost of bread, gas, homes, everything, climbing quietly in the background, year after year. Economists have a name for it. Most families just call it, things got more expensive. But that phrase hides the real story. It wasn't that things got more expensive. It's that Walter's money was getting weaker. Every single year, without him doing anything wrong, the value of what he'd saved was being eaten alive, not by a thief, not by a bad decision he could point to, by simply doing nothing with it. This is the mistake. Not overspending, not debt, not laziness, not even saving itself. The mistake is confusing preservation with growth, believing that money becomes safer simply because it never moves. To be clear, having cash set aside isn't the enemy. An emergency fund, money for the next few years of life, a cushion for the unexpected. That's not the mistake. That's protection. The mistake is something quieter, treating every dollar the same way, forever, long after it should have been put to work. It's mistaking the comfort of watching a number stay the same for the safety of actually growing wealth. Picture 2 young men starting their careers in the same year, in the same city, earning almost the exact same salary. The first, we'll call him Marcus, does what most of us are taught to do. He works hard, spends responsibly, and puts extra money into a savings account. It feels good. Every month the number goes up. He feels in control. He feels safe. The second David does something that feels uncomfortable at first. Instead of letting his extra money sit, he puts it into ownership. Small pieces of businesses, real assets, things that grow. It doesn't feel as safe. The number moves up and down. Some months it even goes down, and David feels a flash of panic every time it does. For the first 5 years, you would never guess which one made the smarter decision. Marcus looks steady, David looks reckless. But this was only the beginning. At age 25, Marcus has more in his account than David. He feels ahead. He feels like he's winning. At age 35, the gap has closed. David's uncomfortable choice has started compounding quietly in the background, while inflation has been chipping away at Marcus's safe cash the entire time. At age 45, David pulls ahead, not by a little, but by a number that makes Marcus uneasy every time he thinks about it. Marcus starts asking why. He was the responsible one. He did everything right. By age 55, the 2 paths are no longer close. David's ownership has multiplied on top of itself for 3 decades. Marcus's cash, adjusted for what it can actually buy, has barely grown at all. In real terms, in what it can purchase, Marcus is almost exactly where he started. He didn't lose his money to a scam. He didn't lose it to a bad investment. He lost it to time itself because he never let it work. But the mistake didn't stop with Marcus. Here is the part that should scare you, and it's the reason this mistake destroys generations instead of individuals. Marcus raises children. And children don't learn money from textbooks. They learn it from watching. They watch which choices make their parents feel safe and which choices make their parents anxious. Marcus's children watched him praise saving. They watched him flinch at anything that moved up and down in value. They absorbed the lesson before they ever earned a single dollar of their own. So Marcus's children grow up and do exactly what he did. They work hard. They save what's left. They avoid the risky choice, the same way their father avoided it. And 40 years later, they find themselves exactly where Walter's children found themselves. Exactly where Marcus found himself. Confused, responsible, and quietly behind. This is how a single misunderstanding about money becomes a family inheritance, not of wealth, but of the absence of it. Nobody hands down a mistake on purpose. They hand down a feeling, a belief that stillness equals safety, and that belief is the most expensive inheritance a family can receive because it costs every generation that carries it forward the exact same 40 years. This isn't an accident, and it isn't really anyone's fault either. It's the natural result of a system most people were never taught to see. Banks aren't villains. They use deposits to fund loans and keep the economy moving, and that's a real and necessary function. But it also means the interest they pay on a basic savings account is rarely enough to outpace rising prices, especially when left there for decades instead of years. Currency, by design, tends to lose value slowly over time. Schools teach algebra and essay writing for 12 straight years, but almost never teach what a dollar is actually worth 10, 20, or 40 years from now. So families aren't failing because they're bad with money. They're failing because they were never shown the one piece of information that would have changed everything. That money left standing still isn't neutral. It's losing every single day, quietly, invisibly, without a single receipt to prove it. Think about how strange that is. If someone walked into Walter's house and took a small percentage of his savings every single year, he would have called the police. He would have installed locks, cameras, and alarm system. He would have fought back. But because the thief wasn't a person, because it was a slow, invisible erosion built into the very structure of currency, Walter never fought back. He couldn't see it happening. There was no broken window, no missing wallet, just a number that looked the same on paper, while the world around it quietly got more expensive. This is why the mistake is so dangerous. It doesn't feel like loss. It feels like nothing happening at all. And nothing happening is exactly what makes a family feel safe, right up until the moment they realize 40 years have passed and they have nothing to show for the discipline they were so proud of. To be fair, this belief was never the only thing working against families like Walter's. Stagnant wages, rising housing costs, medical bills, recessions, and simple lack of access to investing have all played their part in why generations have struggled. Nobody destroyed their family's future through inflation alone, but the belief that stillness equals safety made every one of those other pressures harder to recover from because it left no second engine running in the background to make up the difference. The system didn't fail Walter, or Marcus, or their children. It worked exactly as designed. If you're watching this and you feel a small knot in your stomach, it's probably because some version of this story is happening in your own life right now. Maybe you have money sitting in an account, feeling responsible, feeling safe, telling yourself you'll do something with it later. That feeling, that sense of comfort, is the exact same feeling Walter had. It's the exact same feeling Marcus had. It is not evidence that you're doing the right thing. It's often evidence that the mistake has already started. The uncomfortable truth is this: the choice that feels safest in the short term is frequently the one that costs the most over a lifetime. And the choice that feels uncomfortable, putting your money into something that grows, something that can rise and fall, something you have to trust over years instead of days, is usually the one that actually protects your family. You might be thinking this only happened to older generations, back when nobody understood money the way we do now. But the mistake never disappeared. It just changed its costume. Today, it doesn't look like a passbook savings account. It looks like a young couple keeping a growing pile of cash just in case, while telling themselves they'll start investing once things feel more stable. It looks like someone paying off a low-interest debt aggressively while ignoring an employer match that would have doubled their money instantly. It looks like a family choosing the biggest possible house they can qualify for, because a house feels like an asset, without ever calculating what that decision quietly removes from their ability to own anything else for the next 30 years. None of these choices feel like the mistake. That's exactly the point. The mistake has never once, in 100 years, announced itself. It always shows up dressed as caution, as responsibility, as waiting until I know more. But this was only the beginning of what waiting actually costs. Every year someone waits to put their money to work is a year that can never be recovered. Not because the money disappears, but because the years of growth that would have happened in that time simply never happen at all. $1 invested at 25 does more work over a lifetime than $3 invested at 45. Not because the later dollars are worth less, but because they missed the years the first dollar didn't. This is the part almost nobody calculates until it's too late. The cost of the mistake isn't measured in what you lost. It's measured in what never had the chance to grow. Here's what took 3 generations to learn the hard way. Money was never supposed to sit still. It was designed to move, to be put to work, to multiply quietly in the background while you live your life. Every generation that treated their savings account like a finish line was actually watching the finish line move further away from them, year after year, without ever noticing. Walter didn't fail his children because he didn't work hard enough. He failed them because no one ever told him that hard work without understanding is not the same thing as progress. The families who eventually break this cycle don't do it by earning more money. They break it the moment one person in the bloodline decides to see money differently than everyone before them did, not as something to protect by freezing it in place, but as something to grow by putting it to work. That decision doesn't just change one person's bank account. It changes what their children watch, what their children absorb, and what their children believe is possible before they've earned a single dollar of their own. Because in the end, this was never really about money. It was about which belief you hand down to the people who are watching you the closest.